Good morning upon you. Just seconds away from 8:15 in the morning on a Monday. How you doing? It's November 18th, by the way. And a lot going on in the weather. It's going to get crazy. In fact, it's raining here now. It's the rhythm of the falling rain by the Cascades. And it's a little bit of ASMR going on too, so it's nice. It's gonna be raining all day here, and our weather spotlight brings us to Kansas City. Here I come with a lot going on in Kansas City. Chance of severe weather today, steady rainfall all along today, possibly strong thunderstorms today, which is redundant with severe weather today. Windy, so wind advisories too, all going on today in Kansas City. So widespread rain, some embedded thunderstorms continuing all day. Window for strong to severe storms between 1 and 6 o'clock this evening. But overall, severe chances remain marginal, but not 0%. Tornadoes low, but not 0%. And your hail could be up to 1 inch possible if you have hail. So that's what's going on in Kansas City. Here's what's going on in the rest of the country with the watches in the mornings. And we have a tornado watch right now in North Texas into central Oklahoma, and a flood watch also for parts of the panhandle of Texas into western Oklahoma, central Oklahoma, northern Oklahoma, and wind advisories for much of West Texas into eastern New Mexico, including a high wind watch down there in the mountains in far west Texas. Wind advisories up there in Kansas into Missouri, and as we just talked about, and Illinois, and the iron and the it's northern Minnesota, the arrowhead of Minnesota. That's what I was looking for. High wind watch for South Dakota and Wyoming. It's going to get very windy middle week in the plains. Further west, it's snow and stuff. Winter weather advisories up for parts of the northwest interior, including Montana, Idaho, and Wyoming. Some of that is winter storm warning. Winter storm warnings, the Cascades of Oregon, Washington, Siskiyous of Northern California. Freeze warnings, central California valleys, parts of the central coast even, like Paso Robles and Santa Maria. Freeze warning there in Nevada, just a couple little counties. And even some flood watches up there for Louisiana and Mississippi. We'll talk about that when we talk about severe weather coming up. But let's see why we have all this stuff going on. Oh, I forgot the fog up there in Michigan and northern Indiana and Ohio. All right, here's what's going on in our GFS model. We have some changes, so it's pretty exciting times. Here's our low. Here's our line of severe thunderstorms moving into central Oklahoma, North Texas. This is our tornado risk. It's not a huge risk, but enough for a tornado watch in this area. This low lifting off to the north. It's spreading rain already into Missouri, Kansas. That'll be moving into Nebraska, Iowa, which it already has. And another system in the Pacific Northwest with rain and snow. So here we go. As we get later into today, this is 10 o'clock this morning. This is noontime, Central Time. And you can see that low just lifting into the Midwest. Behind it, we see some cold air coming in. It's a little bit delayed, so it hasn't caught up to our system. So no snow yet on the backside of this. That's going to change as we get into tonight and early tomorrow, as snow starts to wrap into North Dakota and this cold air starts to move into South Dakota, Nebraska, as far south as Colorado, into Utah. And as that cold air sweeps into the plains, we see our isobars tightening. So wind really picking up here in the northern plains into the upper Midwest as we get into Wednesday. Very windy. I know our forecasts are for gusts 40 miles an hour plus, and it's going to be even windier further to the north. This gets us to Wednesday morning. A pretty strong storm here too for the Pacific Northwest, and some heavy fall down here in Florida as we get further into Wednesday. It's cold, it's windy, snowy upper Midwest, and it's windy on the Oregon and Washington coast too, or these isobars tightening as this low approaches, and heavy rainfall for parts of California from the San Francisco Bay northward, and snow inland as we continue through Wednesday. Wednesday night, midnight Wednesday, our low in the Great Lakes now, very strong rain mostly though, a little bit of snow here in Michigan back towards, Minnesota, northern Iowa, and our strong storm moving south into California. So, and snow inland. And then we get into Thursday now, and our Great Lakes low is cranking. Heavy rain, heavy snow, lots of wind, some lake effect snow off of Superior, off of Michigan, but not, as cold as we were talking about a few days ago, but still some, lake effect snow again off of Superior. Here's a patch of snow for parts of Kentucky, West Virginia, Ohio. Snowier and windy for parts of New England. So it's about time you guys had a little taste of winter, and it looks like it's coming because this cold air is all the way down through the mid-Atlantic as this gets us into early morning Friday now. And then we have some heavy rain here in Northern California continuing. So it's going to be a rainy time of it, especially in Northern California. As we get into Friday, we see our snow in Kentucky, West Virginia kind of fading out. Our snow in New England coming down, mixing with rain at times, but cold enough for snow for most, even into New Jersey, Pennsylvania for sure. Parts of West Virginia getting more snow. Meanwhile, more warming up in the plains as the cold air moves east and retreats a little bit northward. But our storm for the west is moving even further south in California and looks like some heavy snow for the Sierra Nevada. This gets us into Saturday morning, 6 a.m., 9 a.m. Here's noon on Saturday. So again, warmer on the plains, and then cold in New England with some breezes and our Pacific Northwest storm as we get to start the weekend. And then as we get into Sunday, we see a lot of snow here, Montana, Idaho, eastern Washington, moving into North Dakota, and our light snow in New England kind of fading out and warming up a little bit here. But we've got some more cold air coming in to the northwest, and we'll see where that goes. Snow into Minnesota as we round out Sunday and move into Monday. And we see some colder air now moving back into the northern plains, into the upper Midwest. Raining and snowing, the rain moving into Southern California now. Snow for Nevada and Utah as we start this a week from today. So, start to take this with a grain of salt. But we do see developing storm in the central Rockies, Colorado, parts of Wyoming, back into Utah. So the Intermountain West getting rain and snow. Rain all the way down into San Diego as we get into next week. So we just watch this snow, getting its act together here in the Four Corners, the northern Four Corners. But look at this, snowing in Wisconsin. Now, this is a big travel, Wisconsin. For Iowa into Minnesota, South Dakota. Where do I live again? Nebraska, back into Wyoming, Colorado, Utah. This is a big travel day, Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving. So will we start to see this storm developing in the Rockies and moving into the plains? Something to watch out for if you're traveling, especially eastern Colorado, Wyoming, Nebraska, South Dakota, into Iowa and Minnesota. And so if this comes true, this is going to be some heavy snow at times, even northern Kansas, as we go through Wednesday, and some heavy snow moving into the north of Omaha, to where I live here in western Iowa. Again, this is Wednesday now in the morning. So a lot of people on the road here. Also some snow maybe down to sea level in western Washington. So Seattle could see some snow from this, maybe even Portland as well, the day before Thanksgiving. Rain heavy at times for the Ohio Valley down into Kentucky. And we start to see maybe some freezing rain for Pennsylvania on the busiest travel day of the year. Heavy snow, Iowa into Minnesota and Wisconsin, as this gets us to noon on Wednesday, and we see our rain and snow for the Pacific Northwest. And then the rain starts to lighten up, but it's cold. The snow starts to lighten up in Iowa, but it's cold, with heavy snow on the north side for Wisconsin into Michigan as we get into Wednesday night, Thanksgiving Eve. And then as we get into Thanksgiving itself, this is midnight Wednesday night, by the way. And then Thanksgiving itself, very strong winds, cold air moving into the plains and eastward too. A lot of rain moving into the east with some snow up in northern New England, rain and snow for the Pacific Northwest, and another low actually moving into California as we get into Thanksgiving. So this is Thanksgiving around noontime. It's a little quieter, but a lot of snow here out west as we get into midnight Thanksgiving, and then the day after Thanksgiving, another snowstorm for Iowa, where I live, and then into Minnesota, Wisconsin, back into South Dakota, Nebraska, into the Rockies, and even the Intermountain West as we end the month on a snowy note in the plains. Very cold air sinking very far south. Cluster of storms here into Tennessee and Kentucky, moving into the mid-Atlantic. Cold air moving all the way down into Texas. More snow up here in the Midwest. As we get to December 1st here, and you see how cold it is, how far south. And then ahead of that, very rainy, very thunderstormy, heavy rain with that. And that cold air invades much of the country and then starts to retreat a little bit as we get into December 3rd. But again, that's very far off, so all subject to change. But Thanksgiving, especially Wednesday, could be travel problems for some. We'll take another look at it here in just a second. 24-hour temperature change. So cooler from yesterday up there in the Great Lakes and also down into far west Texas, eastern New Mexico. Northwest also cooler, warmer. Ohio Valley, Midwest, down into Tennessee Valley, Mississippi River Valley. Surface for today, here's our big mess, our low, moving into Oklahoma. The severe weather into central Oklahoma, North Texas. That's where we have our tornado watch currently. Could see some heavy rain down in Louisiana. Lots of snow for the Pacific Northwest, especially into the Cascades, eastern Oregon, into Idaho, Montana as well, even the Siskiyous of Northern California, heavy snow possible. Our severe weather, where it's happening now, central Oklahoma into North Texas, and then also later tonight, chance for severe weather into eastern Texas, a little sliver of East Texas into Louisiana. And we actually have a slight tornado risk there. So we already have the tornado watch for, Oklahoma City down towards Dallas. But tonight, even overnight, we have a slight chance of tornadoes for Louisiana, East Texas. That's our 5%. In the green, that's our 2%. So again, the tornado risk is not zero for Kansas City, as they said, but there is a slight tornado risk, and that gets all the way up towards Omaha and other parts, basically the Midwest, down into the Mississippi River Valley. So pay attention to the weather today if you live in these areas. Today's temperature anomalies: cold west, or cooler than average west, warmer than average east. Highs today in the west, 40s and 30s. And in the east, we're going to be 60s today. So we have rain all day, but we have that warm air pushing up on the east side of the low. So 60s moving all the way into Iowa. And a lot of 80s even for Texas into Louisiana and Mississippi. And so that warm, juicy air with that cold front moving into it, that's the severe weather threat for tonight there. Lows tomorrow morning. Warmer east, cooler west. In the west, we see a lot of teens here in the mountainous areas, and even near freezing down there. Well, 30s I would say for Eugene, for example. But in the west, we got 30s in the plains, but 40s in the Midwest, 50s in the Ohio Valley, 60s in the southeast, and cooler in the southeast, of course. Surface for tomorrow, our low makes northward progress into Minnesota, starts mixing with that cold air for a chance of heavy snow perhaps for North Dakota, and a mixture all the way down to South Dakota, even parts of Iowa and Wisconsin. Another Pacific Northwest storm, very heavy snow for the Washington, Oregon Cascades, Siskiyous of California, and also eastern Oregon. This was where the heaviest snow is. There's our flooding threat for Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Panhandle of Florida, with more scattered storms up the Mississippi and the Tennessee, Ohio valleys, and rain for the Great Lakes into the Northeast. Severe tomorrow. Yeah, it could be Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Panhandle. Otherwise, general thunderstorms moving through Tennessee, Kentucky, and towards the mid-Atlantic. Tornado risk tomorrow. As we zoom in, there's a 2% risk for, we'll call it Mobile, Alabama, in the center of that, getting into close to Tallahassee, I suppose. And the highs tomorrow looking like this. Cool out west, especially the northwest and into the Rockies, with a lot of 30s and even 20s with elevation here. 40s lower elevations along the west coast. 50s Central California coast. But you get in Texas, we get 70s. We still have some 80s for Florida, 70s southeast, and then still warm 60s into the Midwest and Ohio Valley. We're going to fix that. We'll show you that. 48-hour precipitation, a lot of it in a lot of places. Our low moving through the plains into the Midwest, up to 2 inches widespread here. Our heavier rain into Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee. Pockets of near 4 inches, probably 3 inches more realistic, but that's still a lot of rain. And the Pacific Northwest along the coast, 3 inches plus. And the liquid equivalent in the Cascades, 2 inches of rain, which translates to 2 feet of snow in the Cascades of Oregon, Washington, the Olympic Mountains, and all across the Northwest, especially mountainous areas. A lot of snowfall. You see the smiley face in Idaho, Snake River Valley with not much snow, maybe a dusting. But, that lower elevation around Boise, for example, just not seeing as much snow. So it makes a little smiley face for the Gem State. And heavy snow up there in North Dakota. Surface on Wednesday. Kind of big mess in the Great Lakes. And then our snow on the backside, Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota. Heavy snow continuing for the mountains of the Northwest, and even some heavy rain, flash flooding possible with those rounds of heavy rain that we showed you in Northern California. Thunderstorms for the southeast and up the Atlantic coast. And severe on Wednesday. The Carolinas. I think the Carolinas probably don't like being lumped together, so North Carolina and South Carolina with a marginal risk of severe weather on Wednesday. Your anomalous temperatures on Wednesday cooling off most of the country as that cold air makes eastward progress, still hanging on to the above average temperatures in the east and much below for California and also for the northern plains. And the highs on Thursday, as we zoom through the rest of the week, you can see the cooler air getting all the way down into Tennessee, Nashville, 53, 40s, Kentucky and Ohio and Indiana, getting into, Pennsylvania, 30s, where I live here in Iowa. And don't forget, it's going to be breezy here too. So the Midwest and upper Midwest with 30s for temperatures feels like will be most likely in the 20s. And then North Dakota, 20s, the feels like will be in the teens and probably colder than that. So that's where the cold stuff is, but still warm. In Texas, 70s, 60s though for the southeast, cooling off there. And then we get into Friday, cooler air spreads into the southeast, so it starts cooling off, and also mid-Atlantic and the East Coast, hanging on to the warmth for the southern half of Texas, but cooling off even in West Texas, low 60s. Saturday, the warmth makes a rebound in West Texas and moving up the plains, so a little bit warmer this weekend, but where I live in western Iowa, still 40s, low 40s probably, but a little warmer than say Wednesday, Thursday. That cool air moving into the east with 30s and 40s, and even mid-50s for mid-Atlantic and Pacific Northwest, 40s to near 50 along the coast in cooler inland and with elevation. Sunday, it's cold air moving into the northern plains. These are highs on Sunday, teens in the plains of Montana, 20s into North Dakota. So another cold front and colder air moving in for Thanksgiving week. 8 to 14 day temperatures. That's where we see the cold air is up there in the northern plains. And then near average where I live, and then a good chance of above average temperatures southeast and east. And 8 to 14 day precipitation. This is the 25th through December 1st. And it's going to be, the best chance of above average precipitation, basically west and north, the rest near average pretty much. Thanksgiving specifically, here are your highs. If you're in western Iowa, 20s. 20s, western Iowa for highs, and even colder than that as you head north into the plains. So yeah, the cold air is coming. It's going to taste a little bit like winter, even the Central Plains, even Kansas, mid 40s. So it's cool here for Thanksgiving, even into the mid 50s as you get down into Central Texas. So cooler air invading much of the country. The warmest Thanksgiving along the East Coast and also up into the Ohio Valley from the southeast. And snowfall, snow on the ground at noon on Thanksgiving. So here in western Iowa, with that chance of snow, the day before Thanksgiving, the busiest travel day of the year, is going to looks like, if it comes true, because we still have some time, quite a bit of snow for Nebraska, South Dakota, into parts of Iowa, into Minnesota, and even more snow as you head further north along the Canadian border. Northwest, lots of snow, and a little bit of snow on the ground in the Northeast for Thanksgiving, again, if this comes true, especially northern New York State into Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. Not unusual for this time of year. All right, went a little longer today. There's a lot going on, and maybe I could have gone a little faster. But anyway, thanks for hanging in there with me. Appreciate you so much. And we'll keep you posted on the day before Thanksgiving storm especially, but, all of your forecast. We'll update you tomorrow right here on the Weather Mic. Have a great Monday.